You probably think you know who Dolly Parton is. Country music queen. Big blonde hair. Rhinestones. Dollywood. Jolene. But there's a side of her almost no one talks about. A side that never made headlines until recently. And when it did, even the reporters were shocked. Behind the glitter, behind the $1,000,000 smile, Dolly was doing something quietly. No press releases, no flashy announcements, just one small act of kindness. Then another, and another, until it grew into something enormous. Now, here's the twist. For years, people across Tennessee were getting mysterious letters in the mail. Your medical bill has been paid in full. No name, no explanation, just gone, cleared, like magic. It wasn't until a single slip-up that the truth started to unravel. And when people found out who was behind it all, they couldn't believe it. But to really understand why Dolly did what she did, you have to go back. Not to Nashville, not to her Hollywood fame, but to a dirt-poor cabin in the Smoky Mountains, where she learned what it means to live with nothing. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born in a one-room cabin in Locust Ridge, Tennessee. No running water, no electricity, no safety net. She was the fourth of 12 children. Her dad paid the doctor who delivered her with a bag of cornmeal. That's not a metaphor. That's real life. Every night, Dolly shared a bed with 3 of her siblings. Winters were brutal. Blankets weren't enough. They'd sleep in their clothes, sometimes even in their coats, just to stay warm. And when someone got sick, which was often, going to the doctor wasn't an option. Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't afford it. That reality stuck with her. As Dolly got older and found fame, she never forgot the fear in her mother's eyes when one of the kids had a high fever, or the guilt her father carried when he couldn't pay for treatment. That pain, those memories, they never left her. And here's where it gets interesting. Most celebrities build charities, foundations, big names on buildings. But Dolly, she did something different. Something quiet. You want to know what sparked her first secret act of kindness? It was 1992. Dolly was visiting East Tennessee Children's Hospital, not for a photo op, not for a camera crew. She just wanted to see the kids, talk to the nurses, hear the stories no one tells the press. In one room, she met a little girl battling leukemia. The girl's mom tried to smile, but you could see the exhaustion in her face. They'd sold their car to keep up with the treatments, and they were still thousands of dollars in debt. Dolly didn't say anything dramatic. She just held the girl's hand, listened, gave her a signed guitar pick and a wink. But when she left the room, she asked a nurse one quiet question. If I wanted to help, how would I do that without them knowing it was me? That's when the Whisper campaign began. Dolly found a way to set up anonymous payments through hospital billing departments. No red tape, no credit. She'd identify families struggling the most and wipe their bills clean. No cameras, no stories, just gone. And guess what? That one visit, it turned into a pattern. But the real scale of what she did, that didn't come out until decades later. And it started unraveling thanks to one retired accountant. That story, he wasn't trying to expose anything. In fact, this guy, a retired hospital accountant named Jerry Whitmore, was just cleaning out old records, boxes of them, scanned documents, payment logs, internal memos, stuff no one had looked at in years. But something didn't add up. Over a 10-year span, Jerry noticed dozens of large payments made toward patients' bills, always around the same hospitals in Tennessee, always routed through a tiny nonprofit with a strange name, the Smoky Mountain Relief Trust. No website, no public donations, just checks. Big ones, quiet ones. The kicker? The payments always came with strict instructions. No mention, no acknowledgement. Do not contact sender. Now, Jerry had worked in finance for 40 years. He'd seen donors, grants, all of it. But this was different. So out of curiosity, he followed the trail. He dug through IRS filings, state records, trustee lists, and buried in the paperwork was one name. Not Dolly Parton. That would have been too obvious. It was her grandfather's name, Robert Lee Parton, used as a legal alias on trust documents. Jerry sat back in his chair. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. He didn't tell anyone, not right away, but that discovery, it kicked off a slow leak of stories. Nurses started talking, families compared notes, and suddenly, people started realizing they'd all been helped by the same invisible hand. And the big question became, why? Why would someone like Dolly Parton keep this secret for decades? Most celebrities chase legacy. They want their names on plaques, on hospital wings, on giant checks at charity galas. But Dolly, she ran the other way. Close friends, people who'd known her for decades, had no idea she was quietly paying off people's medical bills. Not even her own bandmates knew. When one found out years later, he said, she was helping strangers more than most of us help our own families. So why hide it? Because for Dolly, it wasn't about gratitude, or applause, or even being remembered. It was about shame. Her own. In interviews, Dolly has said something revealing, that she always felt guilty for surviving poverty when others didn't, that the image of her mother worrying over money haunted her, that no matter how rich she got, she still felt like that poor girl in the mountains who couldn't fix everything. This wasn't charity. It was redemption. And here's the part that'll stick with you. Dolly didn't just pay bills. She wrote personal notes, left gift cards at hospital desks, paid for prescriptions anonymously at rural pharmacies. Dozens of micro-acts, delivered with precision, care, and zero ego. But eventually, the walls couldn't hold the secret. One family, deep in debt after a tragic accident, went public, and their story lit a fuse. What happened next shocked the entire country, and I'll show you the moment everything exploded. It started with a Facebook post. A woman named Claire Thompson had just lost her husband in a logging accident. He'd survived the fall, but the medical costs afterward? Brutal. Airlift fees, ICU stays, rehab. By the time he passed, she owed over $130,000. She had 2 kids, no health insurance, and was on the verge of losing their home. One morning, she got a letter in the mail. A crisp envelope. Inside, a simple printed note. Your medical debt has been paid in full. No further action is required. Please focus on healing. A friend. That was it. No contact info. No return address. Just that. She posted a photo of the letter on Facebook, saying, "If anyone knows who did this, I want to thank them. You saved my life." Within hours, the post exploded. Comments flooded in from strangers. But then something wild happened. Other people began posting similar letters. Same font, same wording. One guy from Knoxville, a mom from Sevierville, a nurse from Oak Ridge recognized the pattern and whispered the name she'd heard in hushed tones. I think this might be Dolly. By the next morning, local news had picked it up. And the theory? That Dolly Parton had been secretly paying off medical bills across Tennessee for over 20 years. The internet went wild. But Dolly? She said nothing. And then, during a live radio interview, she slipped. One tiny sentence that confirmed it all. It was meant to be a light-hearted radio spot. Dolly was on WIVK 107.7 in Knoxville, promoting a new children's book. The host, Rick Johnson, asked her a bunch of fun questions. Favorite breakfast, her last Target run, even what she orders at Cracker Barrel. Then came the curveball. Hey Dolly, random question, but if someone got a mystery letter saying their hospital bill was paid, could that have been you? Dolly laughed. That big, contagious Dolly laugh. Then, without skipping a beat, she said, Well, honey, I always say, if you can help, and you don't, shame on you. Rick chuckled. Dolly moved on. But listeners didn't. That single quote went viral. TikTok users clipped it. Reddit sleuths ran wild. Local journalists began piecing together timelines, digging into property records, trust funds, and nonprofit filings. And the more they dug, the more they found. It wasn't just one hospital or 10 families. It was dozens, maybe hundreds. She'd been doing this for years, quietly, systematically, all under the radar. But the wildest part? She wasn't just helping Tennessee. A flight nurse from New Orleans came forward, then a cancer patient in rural Missouri. The same anonymous notes, the same structure. Could Dolly have gone national? At first, everyone thought Dolly's kindness was a Tennessee thing. Her home state, her roots. Made sense, right? But then came the Louisiana story. A flight nurse named Angela shared her experience. After Hurricane Katrina, she'd worked triple shifts at an overrun ER. Her own mother had suffered a stroke during the chaos, and the bills nearly broke her. Then, just like the others, a letter arrived. Paid in full. No name. No explanation. Angela thought it was a miracle. Until, years later, she heard about Dolly's secret generosity and saw a photo of that same note on a Facebook post. It was identical. Then came the Missouri case. A retired miner undergoing chemo. A woman from Arkansas recovering from a rare blood disorder. The stories started stacking up, and they all pointed to one thing. Dolly Parton hadn't just created a secret system for helping people in her backyard. She had built a nationwide underground network of medical debt relief, all completely anonymous. No PR, no recognition, just impact. And here's where it gets next level. Researchers who study anonymous charitable giving began noticing a strange uptick, starting in the late 1990s, of quiet, single-payer donations to hospitals and pharmacies, all with the same legal phrasing. Their conclusion: it's one donor, probably the same person, and definitely someone with major resources and a background in rural healthcare issues. Sound familiar? But why expand beyond Tennessee? Why keep it secret even after being found out? The answer lies in something Dolly said once. Almost no one caught it. a line buried in an old 1994 interview. 1994. Dolly was doing an interview with a small Nashville outlet, Smoky Mountain Journal. Barely anyone remembers it. No viral clips, no sound bites, just a print piece buried in archives. But buried in that article is one haunting quote. When asked about fame, Dolly said, "If I ever do something kind and somebody knows it was me, I feel like it doesn't count anymore." Let that sink in. She wasn't just being humble. She had a philosophy, a deep belief that true kindness has to be invisible. That once it's seen, once it's praised, it becomes performance. That's why she used fake trust names. That's why the letters were typed. That's why her own friends didn't know. It wasn't about being a saint. It was about quiet dignity. And here's the thing most people miss. Dolly didn't just want to help people. She wanted to preserve their pride. Because when you're poor, and Dolly knew this firsthand, charity can sometimes feel like pity. But an anonymous miracle? That's not pity. That's grace. Still, after all the stories came out, there was a moment of reckoning. Reporters wanted to talk to her. Fans were demanding answers. Even hospitals started putting the pieces together. And then, Dolly made a choice no one expected. She didn't deny it, but she didn't confirm it either. Instead, she redirected everything toward one final act of kindness, on the biggest stage she's ever had. In 2021, Dolly Parton was awarded the National Humanities Medal. Big deal. White House ceremony, cameras, applause. But what she did next? That's what stunned everyone. Instead of giving a typical speech, she walked to the podium and told a story. Not about music, not about Dollywood, but about her father. She said, "My daddy was the smartest man I ever knew. But he couldn't read or write, and he never once saw a doctor unless it was life or death, because he didn't want to be a burden." Then she looked out into the audience and added, "There are a lot of people still like my daddy. They work hard, they get sick, and they feel ashamed for needing help. I just hope if they ever find kindness, they don't feel shame. They feel loved." And that was it. No explanation, no confession. Just that. But here's the part no one saw coming. After that speech, Dolly quietly donated $5 million to launch what's now called the Hope Card Project, a national fund that pays off medical debt for patients in rural hospitals. No press release. The only reason we know? A staffer leaked the IRS filings months later, and the letter template they used to notify patients. You guessed it. Same font, same phrase. Your medical debt has been paid in full. At that moment, even the skeptics gave in. She never admitted it, but she didn't have to. Because by then, it was clear. Dolly Parton wasn't just a music legend. She was an invisible lifeline. And what she did next? Well, let's just say it might have been her boldest move yet. Just when everyone thought Dolly's legacy was defined by quiet generosity and country charm, she pulled off something no one expected. She turned the spotlight on you. In 2022, during a rare interview with NPR, she was asked, "Why not just build a hospital or create a foundation in your name?" Her response? "Honey, I've got enough things with my name on them. I want people to start putting their own names on good deeds." Boom. That's when she dropped the big idea. the Butterfly Effect Fund. It wasn't a charity. It wasn't even about money. It was a movement designed to encourage people to anonymously help someone in their own community. No donation pages, no sign-ups, just instructions. 1. Do something kind. 2. Leave a note that says, "This is for you." Pass it on if you can. 3. Walk away. And the logo? A tiny butterfly, because in Dolly's words, even the smallest flap can stir up a storm of good. Within months, stories exploded on social media. People paying for strangers' groceries, covering rent, dropping off anonymous envelopes, and always with the butterfly. Dolly had sparked something bigger than herself, a chain reaction, and she didn't even brand it. No trademark, no ownership. Because that was the point. She didn't want the credit. She wanted you to become the story. But there was still one last mystery. How much had she actually given away? We found the answer, and it's jaw-dropping. For decades, Dolly Parton gave quietly, without fanfare. But eventually, the paper trail caught up. A group of investigative journalists from the Tennessee Ledger pieced together nonprofit filings, estate trusts, hospital payments, and anonymous grants. It took them over a year. When they finished their analysis, the number shocked even them. Over $32 million. Let that sink in. That's not including the scholarships she's funded, not including her imagination library, which has given away over 200 million books. That's just direct medical debt forgiveness, quietly handled through lawyers, shell nonprofits, and handwritten letters. One journalist called it the most secretive, sustained philanthropic campaign in modern American history. And Dolly? She's never confirmed the number, never bragged, never even blinked. Because for her, it's not about what she's given. It's about what people get to keep. Their dignity, their homes, their ability to sleep at night without a stack of bills on the kitchen table. And here's the kicker. Dolly once said, "I always knew my voice would be loud. I just didn't want my generosity to be." But now, with the secret out, how does she feel? The answer might surprise you. I'll show you her final reaction, recorded when she thought no one was listening. It was backstage, a small benefit concert in Pigeon Forge. Nothing fancy, no national broadcast, just Dolly and a handful of acoustic musicians. Someone from the crew left a mic on. Dolly had just come off stage, laughing, hugging people, glowing like she always does. Then someone joked, "You know they're calling you a secret angel now, right?" Dolly paused, smiled, and said softly, "If folks are looking for an angel, they need to look around their own towns. I'm just an old country girl who remembers what it feels like to owe money you don't have." She took off her boots, sat down, and added, "The day I get remembered more for giving than singing, that's the day I'll know I did something right." Then she chuckled. "But don't you go telling anyone. Let 'em keep wondering." That moment, never intended for public ears, revealed everything. Her humility wasn't an act. Her secrecy wasn't a strategy. It was who she was, through and through. And yet, now that her story's out, something's changed. Because people aren't just inspired. They're taking action. Her quiet legacy is echoing across cities, hospitals, churches, and homes. Once Dolly's secret generosity went public, something unusual happened. Not scandal, not backlash, but momentum. Churches across Tennessee started Dolly Days, where members were encouraged to anonymously help someone in need, no questions asked. Local businesses launched butterfly bins, letting people drop in small gifts, groceries, diapers, gas cards, meant to be taken by those too proud to ask. Hospitals created grace funds, inspired by the structure Dolly used. Anonymous donations, no names, no forms, just relief. One town, Murfreesboro, even voted to name a new pediatric care wing, not after a donor, but after a concept, the kindness wing, because they didn't want to honor Dolly with marble. They wanted to honor her with action. Even schools joined in. Kids started quiet kindness challenges. One second grader wrote, "If Dolly can help people and not tell, maybe I can give my lunch to someone and not tell too." That's the ripple effect. Dolly didn't set out to be a movement, but her silence spoke louder than most people's speeches. And here's the most amazing part. She never claimed a single tax deduction for any of it. She once said, "It ain't charity if you're expecting a receipt." Now imagine that. Millions given away. And she never even told her accountant to write it off. We live in a world obsessed with credit. Followers, likes, brand deals. Everybody wants their name in lights, even when they give. But Dolly, she built her legacy in the dark. She didn't launch a global foundation. She didn't brand a movement. She didn't even tell her closest friends. She gave without fanfare. She gave without fingerprints. And in doing so, she taught us something powerful. Real legacy isn't what you leave behind with your name on it. It's what people feel, quietly, because of what you did when no one was watching. Dolly's story flips the script. It says, maybe the highest form of giving is the kind that doesn't feed your ego. Maybe kindness shouldn't come with a hashtag. Maybe grace, real grace, is anonymous. It's in the mom who gets to tuck her kids into bed without crying over bills. The cancer patient who opens their mailbox and finds hope instead of debt. The nurse who can stop worrying about a second job and just breathe. That's the kind of hero Dolly is. Not because she changed the system, but because she changed one life at a time, over and over again, until it became an invisible empire of good. And here's the wildest part. She's probably still doing it. Right now, somewhere. And someone will open a letter today with tears in their eyes whispering, "Who did this?" And Dolly, she'll just smile and say nothing.